beef suet is the internal fat of a cow. It's the fat that's typically around the kidneys and the organs. It's the healthier fat that you can render down and make beef tallow. So this is our beef suet from our cows. The first step here is to take your suet, and we're going to cut it up into smaller pieces so that it will render down a lot more evenly and quick. So one of the first things you'll notice is that suet at room temperature is pretty hard actually. So it's important that you have a good sharp knife here when we're cutting it up into the smaller pieces. And we're cutting it up into the, roughly 1-inch cubes here, or smaller if you can. The smaller the pieces are, the quicker and easier that it will render down. This part of the process does take some time, but it is pretty important to get the suet chopped up into the small chunks so that it cooks evenly and helps to release the tallow. But as you can see, yeah, we're just cutting it up into small pieces and putting it into the crock pot here, where we'll render it down in the crock pot. And on this piece of suet here, you'll actually notice that there's a little bit of meat that's still visible there in the suet, and that's perfectly fine. We'll just render it down as well, right along with the suet. It'll be fine. It'll cook in the crock pot and release those nutrients and flavor into the tallow. In total here, this is roughly 5 pounds of suet that we're gonna render here, and it'll yield us roughly a quart of pure tallow. So now the only thing left to do is add a little bit of salt. This is probably a couple tablespoons. And I've got a couple cups of water already measured out. And let's turn the crock pot on low. And we'll come back in a couple hours. So here we are, a couple hours in. You can see it's definitely rendered out a lot of the tallow. It's also shrunken about half the volume of what it was. I'm just going to give it a little stir here, and we'll let it keep rendering here for another hour or so. So it's been about 3 hours of total a little over 3 hours of total time that we've been rendering here. So now it's time to strain off the tallow from the suet. And what I've done, I've just taken a strainer and lined it with cheesecloth. And I've doubled the cheesecloth over on itself several times to make sure it catches all the large parts of suet and gristle and everything else that's in there. And yeah, as I was doing this, I found that in order to get all of the tallow separated from the suet, you had to kind of dip some out and then kind of push it around in there with your spoon to squeeze out the tallow from the suet. And it's a little bit of a time-consuming process here. So I've sped up the video here to try and get through here, but as you can see, getting nice pure tallow here into our bowl. And there is a little bit of a water in here too with the tallow, and you'll see here in the next step that the water and the tallow are they'll separate, and the tallow will be on top and the water will settle to the bottom and help to purify our end result. So here we are, it's the next day, and our tallow is set overnight. And as you can see here, it's got nice and hard here. Oh, and there you can see the water that's sitting underneath it. So if we take and pop our tallow out of here, I can get it out. We'll actually see on the bottom, you can see this very light discoloration ring here. That's kind of the impurities that get pulled out with the salt. You can see how the water's a little bit dirty. It's also some of the other impurities. So we'll take and grab our knife over here. Scrape off that layer of impurity. And there you can see we have our tallow rendered out, ready to, and what we'll probably do is we'll probably remelt this down, get it liquefied again, and then probably store it in a mason jar. Either we'll refrigerate it or freeze it for later use. Hope that helps. Thanks for watching.